Welcome to Issaquah Christian Church.
Today, we're going to be continuing on in our series on Romans, finishing off where Steve had started us on in chapter 7, and now we're going to continue on. Last time, when Steve was going on, we were learning a little bit more about the law and how, thanks to Christ and his sacrifice, we're able to be joined together with Christ. Paul has been going through addressing some problems with the law, and so we're going to be talking about that a little more. Before we get going, though, I want to ask you all a question. I want you to think about something. Have you ever, in the morning, maybe got up, looked in the mirror, and looked in, and you saw something like, ugh, how long has that been there? Is that green? You see something, and you're like, I think I might need to get that checked out. I'm going to need to call my doctor. There's something wrong there. Of course, some people, they look in the mirror and they see that weird, strange green thing and think, I think I can handle it. I think I got this. I think I'll be fine. Other people, they might look in the mirror and go, why are you showing me this? I didn't need to see this. You didn't need to tell me any of this. I didn't know about any of it. Of course, there's one other group. This other group, they look in the mirror and they go, that's odd. They turn around, they walk away, and then as soon as they leave the room, they go, what was I doing in there? I have completely forgotten. Well, it doesn't matter. I need to go. They just completely forget everything they just saw, like it never even happened. We have lots of different kinds of people. When they look in the mirror, they see problems. And some people want to try to fix them. Some people try to go about it a great way, trying to look for someone who is an expert, who actually knows about this and say, hey, how do I fix this? What do I need to do? Is there other people I can go to and talk to and help get this figured out and help get rid of this infection or this problem? Of course, some people, they look at it and just think, I think I'm enough. I've got enough knowledge. Me here as a teacher, I know definitely medical information, how to fight these strange infections that I've never seen before. Or I've been trying to fight for years and years and years and never got a handle on, but I still think I got a chance. This is the year. This is my decade. But you have all these different people who see these problems and react to it differently. And in the book of Romans, we have two groups who have been struggling together. We have a group of people who were Christians, but they came from different backgrounds. Some of them were from Jewish backgrounds, some of them from Gentile backgrounds. And Paul's been going through, talking to them about these struggles. And he wants to finish off some problems that they're going over. Right now, he's finishing off some problems about the law, some misunderstandings about the law, and he just really wants to finish this off, move on into really solving their other bigger issues. And these problems, when people look in that mirror and see issues and react differently, this is something that you'll find throughout the Bible. James talks about this quite a bit. Peter talks about this. Everybody is talking about it. So this is not something that's just unique to one little group in one place. Everybody has this problem. Okay. Well, today we're going to be reading through Romans chapter 7, verses 13 through 25. I'm going to read through this whole section here with all of you, and then we're going to go through it a little piece by piece. So if you want to follow along in your own Bible, please do. I'll be reading off here. So again, this is Romans 7, 13 through 25. It says this, did that which is good then become death to me? By no means. Nevertheless, in order that sin might be recognized as sin, it used what is good to bring about my death, so that through the commandment, sin might become utterly sinful. We know that the law is spiritual, but I am unspiritual, sold as a slave to sin. I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. For I know that the good itself, for I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that it is in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is sin living in me that does it. So I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me, waging a war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Thanks be to God, who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then I myself, in my mind, am a slave to God's law, but in my sinful nature, a slave to the law of sin. If you've ever wanted a tongue twister, try to read through this passage really fast. I do not do, I do. It's just very hard to say. So let's start off at the beginning there. Romans 7:13. Let me just read that one more time. Just really more tongue twisters for me. Did that which is good then become death to me? By no means. Nevertheless, in order that sin might be recognized as sin, it used what is good to bring about my death, so that through the commandment, sin might become utterly sinful. Paul here in chapter 7, he's been laying out this argument that that law is something good. As he's been going through the book of Romans, he's been going over some problems, trying to help people realize that their sins are what have been condemning them. Some people might look at the law and think, oh, it's the law's fault that I'm actually dying. It's because the law exists. If it didn't exist, then these things I do wouldn't kill me. So naturally that means that it's all the law's fault. It's the law's fault I'm going to die. Paul is trying to really hammer this point home that no, it's not the law's fault you're going to die. He says in Romans, earlier in chapter 3:23, he says that for all have fallen short of the glory of God. And then later on in 6:23, he talks about how the wages of sin is death. He's trying to really hammer this point home. It's because of sin you're going to die. It's not the law's fault you're going to die. He wants to remove any kind of doubt that sin, not the law, is the cause of your death. As I was going through studying this, one commentator I liked, he put it this way. He said, the law is fulfilling its divinely appointed purpose. It is still the measure of good and evil. It serves man's ultimate benefit by showing what the alternative to humble faith in all its stark reality, showing that alternative. The law's point isn't necessarily it's not going to kill you, but it's trying to show you like a mirror on the wall, showing you what is there. It is like a spotlight. It's a person, someone who is saying, hey, do you realize that your arm is broken? It's going the wrong direction. It's telling you something is wrong, but sometimes we take that information well and go, oh, I need to go to the doctor. I need to get this fixed. I need to go to the hospital right now. Can you take me? We ask for help, but sometimes we take this poorly. Sometimes when we are given information about something is wrong about us, we don't like it. But Paul is trying to lay out this argument for us. So I thought of this little logical argument that he's sort of been laying out for us. It's quite simple. It's if the wages of sin is death, then all who have sin will die. All men have sinned, therefore all will die from it. If you want to look for more evidence of this, well, we just look back at the rest of Romans. You see many different times where Paul is going through talking to the Jewish Christians, talking to them about all the things that they had wrong, all the times that they were messing up, and showing very clearly, no, you're not without sin. Why do you think you had to make sacrifices every year? You were sinning. And then going over and making sure that the Gentiles who had become Christians in the room, they weren't going to be just giggling, going, he's telling them, they're all getting in trouble. Look at Paul. He's the teacher, and he's saying that they're all in trouble. And then Paul shifts and is like, oh, you want to talk about you now too? I can talk about you guys too as well, and all of your problems. He has laid this out. They are sinful. And he's trying to really, again, drive this point home that it is sin in us that kills us. It's sin. It's not the law. So sin has been, or not sin, death has, I keep saying the wrong words. I'm sorry. Excuse me. There's like 3 words that are important to this: sin, the law, and death. I'm saying the wrong too. It's the law. The law here is what is getting a little bit misunderstood and being treated like it is the cause of our death, but it's not. The law, sometimes when we look at it, we look at rules and things. You can especially see this in children. If you go to school, there's probably a few times when, well, your teachers, it feels like they just keep saying all these rules to you. Well, you have to do all these things, and you just don't want to do it. Why do I have to actually pay attention here in class instead of playing Fortnite on my Chromebook? Because that definitely never happens in my classroom. And why do I have to get in trouble for it? I did, some of my work. I can just finish the rest later. Why do I have to do this all here? We get annoyed by these rules. They're just trying to stop us from having fun and doing the things we want us to do. They tell us that, no, you can't leave this room. No, you can't do this thing. We get annoyed by them. But the purpose of the law isn't to be annoying. The purpose of the law isn't to just ruin your fun. The purpose of the law is to help you, is to be of benefit to you. Remember the verse, it said, nevertheless, in order that sin might be recognized as sin. The purpose of the law is to be like a spotlight. It's like you're in tall grass and there are snakes slithering about. That law, its purpose is to warn you. There's a snake right there. Don't go there. If you go there, you're going to die. Or there is a snake literally latched onto you. Why did you need to get rid of that. The law's job is to be a watchman, a mirror, someone to guide, or someone to give you information. But this does come with a problem, though. If it's a guide or a watchman or a spotlight, a mirror, something, then it has use. It's beneficial to us, but there is certain things that it can't do. As one ancient church father once said, this is from Cyril of Alexandria, a man who lived and died about 1,600 years ago. He said this, if sin inheres in my flesh and corrupts it, it may well be that the law offers help and gives advice. But even so, it does not set me free from sin. Yet for those who are bound by the weakness of sin, it is hardly enough to know that they should be doing better. What they need is strength to do what is right in accordance with the law. So this comes with the problem. The watchman can warn, can say, hey, this is dangerous, don't go here. The watchman can tell you that you can go wherever the light touches, but to not go into the dark area, like a certain Mufasa told his young son. We can see the path ahead. We can see our face and see that we're messy, but we're going to need help in actually getting it cleaned up. But that means that we're going to be living in this moment where there's this tension, this struggle. And that's what Paul also is wanting to address here, is this struggle we have. We know what's right. We know what God wants, and we agree with it, but we keep doing things we shouldn't do. And so we are living in this struggle, at least according to some people's point of view, which is why I want to bring up something before we totally move on from this. In the Christian world, I don't know if you know this, but there is not 100% agreement on everything. There is lots of debate over many different parts. And there is a 2,000-year-old elephant skeleton in the room. These passages, depending on who you ask, like Cyril of Alexandria that I was just quoting from, some of them may tell you that these passages are not actually about you. These passages are about, maybe they're about someone who isn't a Christian yet. The person who is doing what he hates and agrees with God, maybe he knows about God. Maybe it's someone like Cornelius, the Roman centurion, before he became a Christian. He agrees with God, knows about God, but he doesn't have the power, the strength to overcome these things. And so it's actually just about someone like that, someone who isn't saved yet. But I find this a little bit odd, personally. Personally, I disagree with that take on this. If it is just about non-Christians, then why is Paul telling this struggle to a group of Christians? Why is he using terms about himself in this struggle? It seems a little bit odd. I tend to agree with a more modern scholar. It's not that people in the past are poor people to go listen to. In fact, I quoted from one. I like them. But we're all human. We all are going to have disagreements or make mistakes. But one I like his take on is that of John Piper. He and I don't have 100% agree with him, but I like this. He talks about how this passage here, that Christ's death on the cross, it doesn't put warfare behind us, but it does make warfare possible. To me, this position makes the most sense. If the letter is not for Christians, it doesn't really make sense why Paul would be talking about these topics. But if it's for us, it makes a lot of sense. He's trying to tell us that warfare is now possible through Christ, that you're going to be able to fight, but you're going to have to fight. It's going to be a struggle. The whole point of the book, when you read over Romans, there are two groups of Christians. There are Jews, former Jews who have become Christians, and former Gentiles who have become Christians. And they were both trying to coexist in the same place at the same time, and they were struggling. They were having problems. If they're not struggling, if the older take is correct, that this isn't about Christians, then Paul wouldn't have needed to write the book in the first place, because there were people who were struggling. So let's talk a little bit more about this struggle. We do what we hate. I think it's no illusion on anyone here that some days you do something and you're like, why did I do that? I hate that thing. Why do I keep doing this thing that I know I shouldn't do? Sometimes we look in that mirror, we see a problem that was self-inflicted, and we think, okay, I'm not going to do it. Maybe sometimes, some weeks, you manage to not do it for a whole week. But then you look in the mirror the next week and you're like, I did it again. There it is again. I messed up again. So let's reread, though, that passage, 7:14 through 20, the real tongue twister one. We know that the law is spiritual, but I am unspiritual. Sold as a slave to sin, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but sin living in me. For I know that the good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing. Now if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but the sin living in me that does it. You can feel this frustration in him. I keep doing the things I don't want to do. I keep doing this thing that I disagree with. I agree with God. The law is good. I agree that these things are bad, that they're horrible, that they're rotten, that they are tearing me apart. But I keep on doing them. So the question is why? Why do we keep doing these things? We are saved, or you have the potential to be saved, but we keep doing these things that we hate. Well, some reasons are things like addiction. Some reasons we have gotten into something. Maybe there was a time in our life when we were feeling unloved. Maybe there's a time when you were maybe you're just bored, thought you would try something. Maybe you were hungry and you needed food, and so you decided to go take something that didn't belong to you. And that gave you this, not only gave you what you needed food, and you got food, but then it gave you a rush of adrenaline. There are so many other random reasons that you can think of why a person might get into an addiction. But they're all these addictions. They tell us that, hey, if you do this thing, it'll make you feel good. It'll help you. But these are all lies. It doesn't actually ever fix any kind of problem for you. In fact, it just makes more problems for you. In some cases, in order to actually get into those things, you have to do, quite illegal things for, whatever country you're living in. And so it can be negative not just to your physical health, but to your life as a person living in a country. These addictions are destructive in more ways than one. But as terrible as they all are, we have to take a very important look at. We decided We made a choice at some point in our lives, at least in the case of most of us. Now, there's always going to be an exception to the rule where someone was forced into something. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a person who was abused. We're talking about when we decided, yeah, I'm going to bow down to this idol of lust or greed or whatever. You decided, you made a decision. We made a decision to bow down to something that wasn't God. It was entirely in our control at that point. We were not addicted. There was not this chemical dependency going on in our brains at that time. We made a conscious choice to do something that was foolish. And some people may say, oh, but I didn't know it was going to cause this, that I was going to become addicted to this for years and years and years. Still foolish. You could have asked. You could have decided to figure out whether or not this was a good idea or not. We don't get out of our responsibility for our decisions because we didn't know, because we should have found out first before we acted. Some people may say, oh, you're just being annoying, you're going slow. You should have just picked a decision sooner. Without actually knowing, be annoying to people, because you need to know whether or not your decisions are good decisions or not. We have to take responsibility for our actions. When we get into addictions, they are terrible, and we should be helping each other get out of them, helping each other break those dependencies. But we have to take responsibility. We are the ones who decided to get into them in the first place. So some sins we are constantly struggling with to this day, not because we want to, but because we decided to get into something. And now every time we think about, oh, I need this thing, I need food, I need feel happy this week, your mind goes to, oh, you just do the thing you used to do. We always do that. That's what makes you feel happy. You go back to that old dependency, that old deity that you used to bow down to, and it'll make you happy again. Another place that we see that we're struggling with, sometimes it's not quite addiction, sometimes it's just we trained ourselves in a certain way. And that training, every time you walk out the door, you do the same exact thing. Just a week ago or so, or a couple weeks ago, I was driving over here, coming to church, and I had school on the mind. And I normally go right down this road, and then all the way down to 18 and go down to Covington. And so because school was on my mind, I got by the church, I kept on driving, and I kept on driving. And then I realized what I was doing around the area where all the people land from jumping off the hill up there. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm not going to school. It's Sunday. And so I turn around in the parking lot and come back out and get back over here. I had this training in mind, and because my mind was in just the right place, I just started acting on it. It wasn't like I wanted to do it. This wasn't something I felt dependent on. This is something we call muscle memory. If we get into a certain place, we react in a certain way because of the training we have instilled in us. Another thing, there is this guy I like to watch online. His name is Destin. He has a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day. Christian guy, awesome guy, brilliant guy. He's literally a rocket scientist. And one day, one of his friends brings in this bicycle he has. This is weird little bicycle. And this bike, it was oddly engineered, where if you turn the handlebars to the right, it doesn't go to the right. In fact, the wheel now goes to the left. And when you turn the handlebars to the left, the wheel goes to the right. And so he engineered this bike to be backwards. And of course, Destin, he gets on the bike and he can't ride it because it's backwards. It's not how he's trained himself to ride a bike. But over time, he slowly figures it out. Over a couple months, he eventually figures out how to ride it. And he can ride it without falling over. And things are looking okay on his backwards bicycle. But then he encounters a problem. He goes off to this other country where they do lots of bike riding around the city to get around. And so he gets on a bike, and he starts to pedal, and his mind is still in the mindset of riding a backwards bicycle. And so he turns the wheel subconsciously to go to the right, and it goes to the left. It doesn't do that. It goes to the right. And so he has trained himself how to ride this backwards bike, and now can no longer ride a normal bike. And then there's all these people all looking at him like, look at this American, he can't ride a bike, what's wrong with him? And he tries to explain, it's like, no, it's this thing, I learned how to ride a backwards bike, I'm normal, please. But he gets this problem where he's trained his body to respond to this bike in a certain way. And so he gets on it, and now his mind goes, okay, and we turn right, and that means we go left. But that's not how all 99.99% of the bikes work in the world. And so he has to unlearn the thing that he trained himself in to be able to ride bikes normally again. And this is a problem that we all have with sin. Sometimes we just learn things a poor way, or we did things a bad way, and we train ourselves to react to certain things. People say rude things to us, and so we respond rudely and kind. We defend ourselves. There's certain things that maybe brought us pain, so we just avoid those in a certain way. And so it's not necessarily that we're addicted to it, but our bodies just respond in a certain way, and we have to think about it. We have to forcefully think about it. Okay, I need to turn my wheel right to go right. And you have to sit there and just slowly think about this to work out this bad training we have, to slowly get back to a better place. So sometimes it's not addiction. Sometimes it's literally just we have bad training and we need to fix this. It will take time and it's annoying, but we're still doing the things we don't like to do. We take our foot out the door and immediately we've sinned and we're like, ah. And it wasn't like we wanted to. We need to be more conscious of what we're doing. But we're still having this problem. But this goes along with what Paul was saying. What a wretched man I am. I have addictions or trainings that I decided to take part in, and they're just not going away. They're taking years to go away. I'm still having these problems. But it's not just addictions and muscle memory. There is also still a battle. It's a war. It's not just something that's just slowly lingering and hasn't fully gone away yet. There is a war, meaning there are enemies. In 1 Peter 5:8, Peter, the apostle, he talks about being of sober mind. In 1 Peter 5:8, he says this, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a lion looking for someone to devour." We need to remember, it's not just that we have these addictions we're trying to break free from. It's not just that we have old muscle memory that we need to unlearn. There is a literal enemy who wants to devour you. We are at war. You have stepped foot into a battlefield. I have much respect for those ancient church fathers, but if sin is not if Paul is not talking about us here, then we don't really have much to worry about. Then we're not really stepping foot into a war. We're not really struggling the way Paul says we're struggling. But Peter and others are telling us that we need to be mindful of the devil because the devil is prowling around like a lion. It's looking for people to consume. Sometimes that just means that, hey, the best he's going to try to do is try to weaken you, to try to scare you to the point that you just don't say anything. You go to work, you say hi, but you never talk about your faith. But sometimes it can be worse. Sometimes it's the devil trying to find people who can try to get rid of you. Think about how many times you've heard stories about missionaries who go to other places and he's trying to get those missionaries killed. We need to be mindful. We need to make sure that we're actually focusing on God. Because when we're not, then when we aren't focusing on God, sometimes we talk about how, like, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. Sometimes, even when we're doing okay, we're making sure we're fighting our addictions. Maybe we're helping unlearn some of our muscle memory, but now he's got you distracted. You're so focused on bettering and fixing those problems that you're not focusing on other things that are important. There are many ways that he has to try to deceive, trick, and pull you away from what you should be doing. You may believe that God is real, but are we doing it? Are we actually fighting the fight? And that fight is what we do need to talk about, because there is a fight on. Like Piper said, warfare is possible. We can fight. Let's reread that last section here. So I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then I myself in my mind am a slave to God's law, but in my sinful nature, a slave to the law of sin. The reason why we hate these old addictions, why we hate this training that we decided to take part in all those years ago, that we still keep reacting to things in a poor way. The reason why we are on the lookout for this enemy is because we agree with God. The law is good. We agree with God what is right, what is wrong. You're in a good spot. You agree that evil is evil. You see sin as sin. We are in agreement. This is a good thing. But it means that we have the struggle, because it means that this work, it's not completely done. We still have the addictions. We still have the memory. We still have an enemy trying to catch us when we're not paying attention. We've joined God's side. He's saved us from slavery. But sin is still trying to find ways to get at us. When sin tells us to jump, we don't have to say how high anymore. But we keep thinking about it. We keep considering it, and sometimes we even do it. However, we have someone on our side. Remember, Cyril of Alexandria, he talked about how the law shows us that we're broken, shows us the better path, but we need someone to give us the strength to actually fight. Thankfully, as we're going to talk about in a moment, we do have someone. So we agree with God's law. In 1 Timothy here, one little thing. 1 Timothy here. This was a letter, again, from Paul, though this time sending to his son in the faith. It says this: "Here is a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the worst." Some versions of this says, "of whom I am chief." Or maybe you want to think about it, "of whom I am king." He's the king sinner, the top sinner of all the sinners. But in reality, all sinners are on equal footing with their sin. There isn't anyone who is actually worse sinner than someone else. If you ever think, "Oh man, I'm the worst sinner in the world, I'm never going to be saved." No. Every sin, I want you to think about it this way, every sin is lethal. Doesn't matter which one it is. It's like it's a lethal poison. It doesn't matter how many of those lethal poisons you ingest. The first one did the trick. The first one was able to kill you. It doesn't matter if you have had 1,000 of those vials or only one. The sin is already going to kill you. The reason why I say this is because I want you to remember that Paul here is being almost a little humble, or maybe trying to say that I knew better and I still did these things. I knew what was right, but I still did these things. And now I'm having to struggle onward through all these problems that I didn't need to. Now, anytime I do any sermon like this, I'd like to go a little bit into the Greek, and I'm going to invite you in here. Now, I'll attempt to say this Greek word. It is a talaporos. But this Greek word is for the word here, wretched. What a wretched man I am. Wretched. What this word means in the Greek is describing the miserable, wretched condition of humanity. This thought of this, we have this deep groaning, too deep for words, this pain that we can't seem to escape, these old wounds that we self-inflicted, and we can't get away from them. You look at many of the world's great philosophers from throughout history, Christian or not, and they recognize this pain, that there is a problem in this world, that this world is broken and fallen, and they want release. They want release from this broken place. Now, unfortunately, many of those philosophers, they decided that the best course of action was simply to just end it all. Just be done. Just death was the option. You see jokes every once in a while, pretty much every 4 years now, where people are saying they're voting for the Great Comet 2025. Just end it all. Just be done. I want to be done with this world. But Paul, rather than just saying, no, I just want to end it all, in fact, there's many times where he actually has talked about this. He said, Lord, I would love nothing more for you to just end my life here and now. But he then ends this by saying, but if you still have work for me, I'll stay. Paul is looking for a different path. He's looking for a path that goes with Christ, a path that helps him not just end the suffering, but helps him start to fight against this suffering and start to help other people than just himself. He is trying to serve God's purposes, not his own. He's trying to learn to live selflessly, not selfishly, as he once did. Paul is trusting God to handle this, to help him in the ways that God thinks is best and not the ways that he thinks is best. Many of the people in the Jewish world, they had this problem where they would look at the law and think, I can do this. I can reach perfection. I can reach salvation by just doing this better. But as Paul has been trying to tell them over and over and over again, no, you can't. You all failed at it. The moment that you broke a single part of the law, you broke all of it. It's already done. It's too late. You've already failed. Paul's trying to tell them that the only way, the whole purpose of the law, the old sacrificial system, it was to lead you to Christ, someone who could actually follow the law, someone who could actually save you. It was a guide to Christ. So the great news here is that either you're saved or you can be saved. Remember, Christ's sacrifice, it was enough to save literally every single human that has ever existed. He can save you if you haven't been. And if you already are, don't ever think that his salvation is going to run out one day. That, oh, I've done too many sins and it's going to run out. No, his salvation was enough. Period. As Paul said there at the end, thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then I myself in my mind am a slave to God's law, but my sinful nature a slave to the law of sin. Who will rescue us from this state? Who will save us from this broken, fallen world? Christ. There is salvation. There is hope. We don't have to stay in this miserable, wretched state. There is a way out that doesn't involve just an end and then nothingness. A verse from 1 Corinthians 13:13. Again, Paul, here, speaking to the church in Corinth, he says this, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. One day, Christ will bring about this incredible new world. He will have finished that work of sanctification in you, where he slowly has been helping you learn and grow and change, where he's been slowly helping you fight against your old addictions and break free of them, and unlearn your bad training and learn something new, and learn how to be better watchmen yourself so that you can see where the devil is trying to creep up around the corner, that you know it's there and so you can avoid it. One day that work will be done in you. So that hope will one day be met. You won't have to hope anymore. It will have already arrived. And one day you'll no longer just, as it says here, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest is love, because we trust in him. We have faith in him that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. One day he'll do it. It will be completed with the hope. And so then the only thing we'll have left will be love. It will be there forever. Because at that point, we will no longer have the pain. We will no longer have the misery. We will just have the love. God is mighty. He can fulfill these hopes. He is someone trustworthy. He has shown himself to be trustworthy time and time and time again. People don't go on trusting someone for thousands of years like humans have with God here if they're not trustworthy. But it's still going to be a struggle. The sanctification process is a process. It's not done yet. We're still being sanctified right here, right now. You're saved, your sins are forgiven, but we're in a war. we are in a struggle. And it's not going to be great. There are going to be times when things are going to seem pretty dark. But we shouldn't try to avoid this struggle. That's when Satan has gotten to you. That's the point in when he's gone, aha, I got them distracted. Now they're not fighting anymore. Now they're not on the front lines. They've gone back home, and now they're on their rooftop looking down at things they shouldn't be looking at. We can't resist that struggle because it's in that struggle that we're able to help push that kingdom forward. It's in that struggle where we're able to learn, like, okay, I got knocked down this time, and I was knocked down for a while, but I got back up. And next time, I will get up immediately. And next time after that, I'll only stumble a little bit. And next time, I'll be able to take it because God is helping, giving you that strength. I don't want to go too far into it, but in Romans 8, we're going to be talking a little bit about just that strength that God gives you. You're at war with some frighteningly powerful beings. These are spiritual forces. We're not at war with humans, we're at war with spiritual forces. The word Satan literally means adversary, or a superhuman adversary, something that is beyond our strength and intelligence. If it was just us versus him, we'd lose. We lose that fight every time. But it's not a war just against us versus them, versus a supernatural being. We have the King of Kings. That term there, that means an emperor. That is the ruler of everything on our side. So don't resist the struggle. You're not in it alone. It's going to be hard. There are going to be times when you get knocked down again from something you've been knocked down before, but you're going to learn. God will help you. He will be there every single time to help you get back up. But you have to make that choice to keep getting back up. So don't resist the struggle. God can help us to grow stronger. So we're going to keep having that, but it's the process. That struggle is what helps us grow. Think about any time you've ever had to work out at a gym, or any time when you've just done any kind of workout. It's painful, that process. When you are lifting those weights, when you're doing those push-ups, when you're going those runs, your muscles are literally being torn apart and then healed back together. It's painful, but it makes you stronger. So I want you to enter in with me in some prayer as we ask God to keep helping us with this, helping us in this healing process as we keep on fighting this. Dear Lord, I want to thank you so much, first off, for the fact that you were willing to die for us, that you're willing to even do that. We had done nothing to deserve it at all. While we were still sinners, you died for us. And even though we keep on failing, even though we keep on struggling, you are still working with us. As humans, we would have enough of that. But you don't. You are long-suffering. You're patient. You are love. I thank you so much for everything you do, and I pray that you just keep helping us every time we're struggling, every time we're having problems. I pray that we have the strength, and when our neighbors aren't having the strength, that we will recognize that and go out and help them, to help pick them back up. In Jesus' name, amen.